The City of Waterloo, in cooperation with its many active and inspiring entities, presents Heart for the City, a chance to hear and see what's going on in our city and to meet people who serve you, teach you, entertain you, help you, all neighbors and like you. Make this a city on the move. And now, here's our host, the Honorable Quentin Hart.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on Heart for the City. I'm Quentin Hart, proud mayor of Waterloo. Summertime in Waterloo means hot weather, possibly rainstorms and humidity, all of which cannot dampen enthusiasm for the virtual infinitude of the things to keep one excited and engaged as they experience Waterloo. And downtown Waterloo is home to 2,100 residents, 2,100 residents and about 5,500 daytime workers. And it brings in $70 million worth of annual commerce and averages about $8 million in annual private reinvestment. We will have more to say about that a little bit later. Moving on. There is a new attraction for our youngest citizens, donated to the city by a local service organization, and it resides in the midst of a very active recreational area, and it promises to be a lot of fun for kids for a long time. So stay tuned, more on this new attraction after this.
When I ride my bike, I am always very careful and stay safe at all times. I always wear a properly fitted helmet. I check the safety lights in the front and back of my bike, and no matter where I ride, I keep an eye out for cars, even when riding on the sidewalk. This message is brought to you by Drive Safe Cedar Valley.
You may have heard me say it, and I truly believe that there is no greater investment that we can make than the investment in our young people. And such is never truer than the new trike track located at Exchange Park. The ribbon cutting is history, and after a few years of funding, planning, and negotiation, kids are beginning to pedal their way around the course. And to tell us the story of this creative and exciting venture is Dustin Fadiga from the Exchange Club of Waterloo. Welcome, Dustin.
Thank you, Mayor Hart. Great to be here.
Man, thanks for being here. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, who are you?
I am the past president of the Exchange Club. That
Right.
just ended about a couple weeks ago. So I've spent my whole last year leading this phenomenal club here in Waterloo.
And when we talk about Exchange Club, what is Exchange Club?
Great
I know
question.
everyone, all 70,000 in Waterloo, 45,000 in Cedar Valley. The entire Cedar Valley knows, but just in case
Right.
there's that one person.
Right, and that's who we want to reach. So Exchange Club, great question. We've been in this area for 70 years. We just celebrated our 7th anniversary. Exchange Club is a civic organization. We are all members of Waterloo, Cedar Falls area community in the club. We have three main pillars that we focus on. Our main one is child abuse prevention, and we support a lot of programs of those, which I'll mention. Second is Americanism. We love to help veterans. We love to do things for veterans and also spread the pride of being an American. And then also community service. We're a community service organization. We want to continue to support those things. So within Exchange Club, I'll hit on a couple of them. We have 30 main programs that we do. Probably some of the highlights that we hit is giving money to the Salvation Army. Giving money to different organizations in the area. We also do Police Officer of the Year, Firefighter of the Year. We also just partnered with Irving Elementary to provide different things that they may need. We also give scholarships to some Expo students based off of their essays and different things. So we're focused on children, we're focused on the community, and we're focused on helping these young children be bright here in Waterloo.
Well, I mean, those three areas, you pretty much covered the basis, because when we talk about the investment in our young people, when we talk about working with programming to help families to be able to do better, or recreational activities, I mean, it's across the board for the great work that the Exchange Club is doing. But you mentioned a little bit earlier, you're president, past president, pro tem, or tell us your role again.
Yep. So I've worked through the process. I was a board member, a VP, president-elect, and then president for the 2017-2018 year. To oversee all of these programs, our committee members, we would have regular board meetings like every other place. And that was basically the process that I've worked through, and I just now am past president of the club. So it's been a great experience for me.
So the concept for the trike track, you've probably been from beginning to
Yes,
to
I've
end.
been it from the start of this process. We had two presidents a few years back that came up with the idea, started the funding, hit a few bumps in the road that had some challenges, but we got through it this year, and we got the money funded that we needed for the trike track, and we also got the nuts and bolts of getting things figured out with leisure services and getting over those hurdles.
So there were some bumps and some hurdles in the trike track, and you moved through that. Now, how much funding was involved? This isn't a small, well, let me even go back to and I'm going to throw this out here first. Does Waterloo have one of the largest trikes in the entire state of Iowa?
It does now. If it didn't before, I think a 380 when you see the largest skillet in the world. I don't know if Brandon is it or something, but I think Waterloo should get that on there. Come see the largest tricycle ever.
Oh man, that
it
thing
is phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, you got to get out there.
And how much money did it take to actually do this?
Great question. So it took about $50,000 for us to solidify the trike track. We worked with Ritlin for the design. Then Wayne McGee was the main designer, and he also built the sculpture that's out there. And so we worked with them to really design the track. There's been other ones around the country that we've looked at, and that's how we kind of came up with the trike track that's there today.
And so the funding, so it was around $50,000, but like where does that come from?
Great question. So we went out to the community. We said, hey, you know what? We've got a great idea here. We want to implement this. It's at Exchange Park, which we've been a part of that park for years and years. So we'd really like to thank some of our donors. Black Hawk Gaming Association, they're a huge one in our area anyway. They gave us a grant for this. The Waterloo Bucks also gave us a grant, obviously with their fields and their stadium out there. It just helps families that come out there have more options out at Exchange Park. The McElroy Foundation also helped with that. And then Pat Cole Memorial, which is a local member. Dick Cole, his wife, passed away, and he gave some dollars towards that. And then some of our past presidents gave some of their funds, and that's how we got to where we're at today.
Well, that's wonderful. So people out there that are concerned and care about the community, wanting to invest in the lives of young people, so that's outstanding. One question that it's built now, what happens to the maintenance and the upkeep?
Great question. So we've worked with the city on this extensively.
Right.
And it fits just perfectly with Exchange Park, being that the Frisbee disc golf courses out there, the ball fields, all of those things are already out there. So we basically turned ownership over to Leisure Services and the city, and they're going to do the maintenance and upkeep, mowing, things like that.
And what are the rules? Are there any rules to young people? It's like you can't go 2 or 3 miles per hour. You can't elbow someone.
Hey, you can go as fast as you want on a trike. I don't know what the top speed is on those. I rode one that day. I couldn't get going very fast.
I tried, but I couldn't get back out. So.
There really aren't any rules. It's really designed and built for our younger kids, our 6 and under, kids that aren't quite on a bicycle yet, but they are on a tricycle. We also wanted it to be a safe spot for people. It's also very inclusive for anyone with disabilities or things, so it's open to anybody, any shape or size. They can come there and experience the track. I'll tell you, I've lived at the ball fields 3 nights a week for the past couple months, and it's great for my other kids to just run over there and play on the trike track, because there really wasn't anything there other than the playground and the skate park. So this has been a great addition for all those families that are out there during baseball season.
And real quickly, are there any educational elements that are involved?
Great question. There is. So we've designed it to work like a roadway. So they're going to learn the basic road signs, signals, how to drive on the right and left-hand lane. There is a roundabout, so we're educating them early. There was no controversy. That's a statement that just gets some good laughs sometimes. But at the same time, we've included some entrepreneurship into it. There's some booths that are like they're running a business, a gas station, things like that. So they put their order in one end, and it comes over to the other side. So we've incorporated a lot of different things to help these kids, get ahead of the curve and have a great time doing it.
So this park is going to be the destination for tricyclists in the Cedar Valley, right?
Definitely,
it's the excursion.
Definitely. I think about it was good timing. It happened randomly, but I think with Pedal Fest going on, Waterloo is really becoming a cyclist destination. We've got a ton of people on cycles. You guys are adjusting the roads to be more friendly. We've got, single speed. That's brought a lot of attraction. My Waterloo Days has the bike races for young kids. We're going to expand that. We want to do bigger. So, we want people in downtown and in the area to be riding bikes. It's really a culture shift that we want to see, and we're hoping to help that with people.
And it's good, too, because instead of playing video games or on the iPads, our youngest of people are out there riding, exercising. So we thank you so much. Dustin, this has been absolutely great. So thanks for taking time to inform us about this exceptional addition to a healthy recreational opportunity for all our youngest to enjoy. And thanks to the Exchange Club of Waterloo for the effort that went into making this happen, as well as all the other public service activities that you and your club participate in and support.
Thank you, Mayor Hart.
Some relevant tips from an experienced parent, me, who's learning every day. At about 3 years old, a child may be ready to try pedaling on a three-wheeler or a tricycle. A tricycle is great for your child's coordination and muscle strength, and of course, they'll love the extra speed reach from pedaling. Choose a tricycle with a wide base and a stable design, which is much less likely to tip over. So for a healthy, safe, and fun-filled time with your youngster, be sure to visit the trike track at Exchange Park near Riverside Stadium. You'll be so glad you did, but stay tuned for more to come after this.
Discover your past, present, and future at the Grant Museum District. Explore and play at the Bluedorn Science Imaginarium. This interactive science center provides fun, hands-on exhibits and live science demonstrations. Visitors can explore more than 90 different exhibits and marvel at the aquariums and enclosures that are home to a variety of amphibians, fish, reptiles, snakes, and arachnids. Enjoy both permanent and temporary exhibits at the Grant Museum of History and Science. Take in a planetarium show and learn all about the history of the Cedar Valley. Marvel at the Victorian elegance of the Snowden House and the Rensselaer-Russell House Museum. Visit the Sullivan Brothers Iowa Veterans Museum and take in its traditional and interactive displays. Veteran stories are told throughout the museum's mini theaters, interactive maps, dog tag stations, and more. Visit gmdistrict.org for details, hours, and rates.
Everyone knows that Waterloo is one of the most diverse communities in the state. It is one of the reasons the city has a great sense of substance, energy, and vitality. But this is not just a modern condition. Its evolution has deep roots in the history of our city. And Charles Pearson believes historic preservation is more than restoring old buildings. The Waterloo native has been working tirelessly for several years, a decade or so, to ensure important stories, significant events, and landmarks related to African American history and the civil rights struggle and throughout all boundaries or ethnicities are also maintained for future generations. To tell us about his efforts in this crucial cause is Charles Pearson. Welcome back to Heart for the City.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. But tell us, how did you become, and I'll say a historian, but how did you get engaged in this area?
Well, when I was living in the Quad Cities, I used to participate in historical societies, just kind of like volunteering. And then we started talking about different ethnic groups and how they played a role in civil rights in Iowa. And from there, I just started passionately researching in depth, working with like archivists from around the state, going into school libraries, and kind of built the wagon up that way.
Right. And so when you take a look at just that conversation, oftentimes people believe that civil rights or those things only belong to a certain group. Is that true, or is civil rights?
Oh yeah, civil rights is probably the most diverse thing you could probably talk about. It's the most diverse topic. I think in Iowa, historically, they try to take civil rights and look out of Alabama or a southern lens. And we never took time out to see what the North or what the Midwest civil rights look like. And so that's what we're tapping into. We're saying, okay, let's look at what Iowa's civil rights really looks like and not look at what civil rights look like in the South.
And so when we talk about Iowa civil rights, we do comparisons to the South or when those things. Let's even take a step back further too, because this is important. The conversation about historic preservation, and oftentimes. Is it mostly perceived about the rehabilitation of old buildings or the acknowledgement of old buildings or historic sites?
Historic preservation, historically, if you were a wealthy white person that had a lot of money but had a lot of buildings and properties, they figured out a way to get these people tax credits. When it came to ethnic cultures, it was never set up for that because you didn't really have a lot of wealth in the ethnic communities. So when it comes to preservation, let's say in Waterloo, you talk about architect and design of a building, tax credits and all that. But preservation is also its cultural significance.
Right.
So part of the agreement, usually what city government does is say, okay, if we give you this historical tax credit as a developer, in return you'll help tell that property story for people that visit the city. And so that's what we kind of push in. You know, we're not against historical tax credits for architecture, but we want more out of the developers to tell our story when it comes to the city of Waterloo.
Right. And moving from the historical preservation, you talk about the ethnic contributions within all of that. There's a larger scale project that you've been working on across the state, and it has to do with the Iowa Civil Rights Trail. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I had an opportunity to work with Bi-State Region. We were working on the Upper Mississippi River at the time. But they started telling me how non-motorized transportation could actually help connect people to tell a universal story. And so when I got to Waterloo, I started working with Intercog. And so what we did there was try to come up with a model, to use Waterloo as a model on how the civil rights trail system can work. And basically that's what we're working on.
Right.
Waterloo is like the model for the state and possibly other areas outside of the state. And with your support so far, you know, we've been able to get a lot done.
And, you know, within that and taking steps to what's already been done is the MLK Nature Trail on or near the East High campus. Can you tell us about that project? I think, are we first in the country or one of the first?
Absolutely, we're the first in the country. I think what the Martin Luther King Nature Trail was all about was to commemorate King and Coretta's first visit to the state of Iowa. So we really didn't have nothing in place in Waterloo. And then second, East High School is probably iconic for producing civil rights activism. And so we felt like the combination of having a nature trail, being connected to a high school, not only would draw a lot of attention, but it would be good for our youth to have something like established like that.
And one of the quotes that you hear people talk about is, if you don't learn about your past or your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And we're coming up on the 50th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, of the Waterloo racial riots. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, I think if you're familiar with civil rights history, after King's assassination, you had a lot of people throughout the United States that was upset about that.
Right.
And so here in Waterloo, you had East High students that protest, and what they wanted was, I think, a black student union, black teachers, that type of thing. When it came to that racial riot, the magnitude of it was the worst racial riot in the history of the state of Iowa.
Right.
And so we felt like if we can actually take those resources and develop them that could be like a very great educational component, not just for our community, but for other people that might visit our city.
Right, and so, and you mentioned earlier too, when you take a look at civil rights, you take a look at the history, you take a look at the contributions of whether you were fighting against someone that was in control or not, and you just tied it in with the students that were at East High that wanted a better education and better opportunities. There's other groups that you mentioned a little bit earlier, and one, you didn't mention it, but the Irish Catholics struggle for racial equality. That's one story that's not told as well.
Yeah, that was a great question. Yeah, I think the problem is whoever the historians were over the past 50 years, for some reason, the African American story was always the conversation. But if you take that layer off, if you go back into the early 19th century, you see a large Irish Catholic community that also went through the same struggle. Not, I want to say when it came to some of the same things that African Americans went through, but them coming from Ireland over to Waterloo, Iowa, and Smoky Road, you know, that was a challenge for them. And then two, if you look at the history of Tom Sullivan, the father of the 5 Sullivan brothers, he was fighting for their property just like African Americans was fighting for their property back in the 60s.
Right.
So when it comes to the struggle, you have different cultures that can contribute to telling that story right here in our community.
And you know what's really good too, if you take a look at the hour that our nation is in and telling those stories and equal rights and conversations on a national level coming all back down to the local level, there's no greater time right now to be able to tell those stories about the struggles and the challenges and about how we could be a better community. But I'm going to also go to this layer too, because the work that you're doing is not just talking about the remembrance and the acknowledgement, but you've found ways that we believe that we can redevelop areas that need some support. Is that still true? We could.
Yeah, I think. But what I've been fortunate enough, I've been working very closely with the State Historical Society of Iowa, and they had an inventory of African American properties. They only had like 11 properties in the inventory. So they said we should have hundreds and hundreds of properties. So they said, Charles, what would be a good model city that has a lot of African American properties that we could target? And I said, I got the perfect place.
Right.
Waterloo, Iowa.
Right.
So we're in a situation where Waterloo is the model for the state of Iowa when it comes to developing and restoration and revitalizing these resources.
So that is a priority, because if you can bring economics to some of these areas that have been challenged and utilize those resources in that framework, it's like a no-brainer to do that. But before we close out, and I know we're going to probably have several different shows because this is already our second one, and we haven't even scratched the surface. But the acknowledgement, the history, and the walking tours and those types of things. Where are we at? Where are we at with that part? Are we?
Yeah, I think we're in a great place. I think right now the Waterloo Community School Districts is on board, the city's on board, the community's on board. I think just to kind of glue all the pieces together, actually we have a goal. Next year is the 60th anniversary of King's first visit and Coretta's first visit to Waterloo. So that's our target. We're saying by this time next year, can we roll this thing out and make Waterloo proud again?
Yeah, and you know, part of the crew here to help put this show together, a lady just mentioned that she could sit and listen to you for hours because you have the ability to take the conversation about history that, you know, you can think it's dead, but you make it alive and you make it relevant and you make people feel included in that entire conversation. So you have a great ability to be able to do that. So, you know, I appreciate you taking time out to be on the show. And I want to thank you for taking time to let people know about the important matter of historic preservation, which we now understand is not just about buildings. Those of us that lived through the civil rights era, you know, sometimes may tend to forget how profoundly it affected us. And for the young who through preservation will be able to appreciate the people, events, and places that allow us to understand who we are today. And that includes all of us. And I hope you will be a regular on the Heart for the City show. And there is so much to be said about the importance and the fascinating history of our city. So thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you.
And by the way, Charles is a 1984 graduate of East High School, East High, where he was a state champion wrestler and a member of East High's last state championship wrestling team. And his grandfather was a leader in the United Packing House Workers of America, Local 46, which brought blacks and whites together in the 1950s to fight for equality, both at Rath Packing Company and the city. And his father, Charles Miles, Pops, formed the Unity Neighborhood Association and taught him how historic preservation can benefit a community. You know, what a great legacy. So don't go away. There's more to come after this.
There's a place that lies directly between where you've been and where you're going. It's the place in the middle, the place where your past and future connect. Hawkeye Community College is that place, connecting you to great faculty, engaged students, and four-year destinations like the University of Northern Iowa. Every masterpiece starts with a blank canvas, and every success story begins with an empty page. Start writing your story today. Hawkeye Community College. Connect.
When is a street more than a street? When it's Main Street, along with fascinating buildings, parks, and bridges. Most of our country's main streets are the basic workhorses of public space. They can carry people, freight, and vehicles on their surfaces, water, sewage, power, gas, steam, and data below. But to tell us more about our Main Street is none other than Jessica Rucker, the new executive director of Main Street, Waterloo. Wow, that is a pretty long title, Jessica, but congratulations and welcome to your first visit to Heart for the City.
Thank you for having me.
I know you didn't think I'd ever get through that. It's a pretty long title. But Jessica, your first time on here, people know you throughout the Cedar Valley though, but tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into the position of executive director.
Well, I grew up in the Cedar Valley and went to Cedar Falls High School, grew up right here in the area, lived here the majority of my life. I moved away for a handful of years, but the whole time I was gone, I knew I wanted to come back to the Cedar Valley. So when I moved back to Waterloo, and ever since moving back, I have been involved in the community, working with different nonprofits and volunteering with different organizations. And I've kind of just had this passion and a desire to work for a nonprofit organization, and I've been looking for the right one that has the right fit for me. And when this job opened up, I saw that it was something where I could fulfill that passion and make a sustainable difference that people would see.
And when we talk about Main Street, I guess the big question is, or becomes, what is Main Street? Or a Main Street? There's
Main Street Waterloo, it falls under the umbrella of Main Street Iowa and Main Street America, which is a division of the National Historic Preservation. And there are 54 Main Street communities within the state of Iowa that we work with and gives us access to different grants and information and resources. And our Main Street Waterloo is working to help with the economic development of the downtown area. We do have some defined district borders as to where we can help with grants, but we do look at the entire downtown area when we look into marketing and historic preservation and trying to bring businesses into the area.
Right. And you know, what's interesting about the entire concept is the synergy that it builds within communities as well. You have your businesses working together. You just mentioned the marketing portions of it, but when you have events, it's great to see the businesses working together and participating. But you also just mentioned there's some geographical boundaries, but what are our Main Street boundaries?
As of right now, our boundaries go from Franklin to Washington, the railroad tracks over by 6th, over to 3rd Street, and we do jut out and include single speed in because we brought them into our district to help with some saving of the Wonder Bread building.
Oh, absolutely. Just another great project. And when we take a look at since last July, I know my numbers are a little bit out there, but when we talk about activities and businesses coming to downtown, do we have any numbers on that?
We're looking at getting close to about 20 businesses that have opened since last July, and we have probably at least 10 that will be opening before the end of the year.
Oh, wow.
So your number's not as far off if we look at the full year of 2018.
And you know what's great is to just see the overall transition of downtown Waterloo over the past 15 to 20 years. When I first started on council, I went to a presentation and they showed like before and after pictures. So the before pictures were kind of around that time in the late 90s or so, when a lot of empty storefronts. All of those things are changing. So when I hear about, in addition to the businesses we already have, the new 20-ish, I'll say 20-ish businesses that are here, that is great news to our city core. But you also work to create some type of consistency within the businesses and the ambiance of the buildings. And you have a design council.
We do.
What is a design council?
So Main Street has 4 points that we focus on, design being one of the 4 points. And design actually works with the city, and we have several members from the Historic Society, from City Council, from Planning and Development and Leisure Services. And we really work with these businesses who are getting ready to open up or maybe do some renovations or changes to the outside of their storefronts to ensure some cohesiveness within the community, to help maybe recommend a sign company to use to make sure that maybe that sign that they were looking at, the building couldn't hold it, and we can help with some of those issues that they might not have foreseen.
Right.
We also help look at what would be good if somebody's going to improve a facade or outdoor seating.
Right.
We can point them in the right direction. It was kind of a first step before we get to the city, so when they're going to the city, they have all their ducks in a row.
And then from that point, from the actual design and look and feel and answering those questions and being a resource, you have the Economic Vitality Council. So what is that about?
That one is one of our very important councils. I mean, they're all very important, but this one's really important because they're the ones that are helping bring those businesses to the downtown area. Not only are they working with the businesses that are already here to make sure they have everything they need and we can help them as much as we can, but looking to fill those empty storefronts. They're the ones that have been out there hitting the pavement, talking to different businesses, saying, hey, we need a brewery in downtown Waterloo. How would you like to expand?
Right. And so you went from design to economic, now organizational council.
Now, organization is the backbone of our organization because they're the ones that are going to be in charge of the fundraising and the sponsorships for our events, as well as the volunteers that we have at all of our events too. And
how much do you depend on volunteers to help out in some of these areas?
We are a volunteer-driven organization. There are only a couple of us on staff, and everyone else that works with Main Street is a volunteer. Everyone that sits on our board, everyone you see working at those events, basically, other than myself and the couple of staff I have, are all volunteers.
So our success depends on our community's ability to get engaged and be a part of the synergy that's taking place in downtown Main Street. And you're starting to get a lot of people that live above the buildings and stuff. So that has to be just something that's so very exciting as well.
It is. We're trying to make it definitely a place where you not only come to play and work, but you want to live. And then those people who are living stay here to do those things.
And the Promotions and Marketing Council is absolutely huge because you're telling the message. But tell us a little bit about that function.
And the Promotions Council is probably the one that people most know us for because they're the ones in charge of all the events that we put on under the Main Street umbrella. Your Friday Loos, My Waterloo Days, Barbecue Loo, Taste of Loo, Tour de Loo, trick-or-treating in the fall, Winter Wonderloo. I know I'm going to forget one because we have so many events that we put on.
Mayor's Fireworks when it's not rained out.
Which will now be the mayor's kickoff to Labor Day celebration.
Booyah, booyah. You know, we take lemons and we make lemonade.
Exactly.
But, you know, it is so exciting to see everything that's taking place. But let me tell you, there was an experience recently at the My Waterloo Days. And you don't know I'm going to say this, but I looked and saw you on a gator. I looked and I saw you walking very fast in one direction. I looked and saw you over there giving direction to staff. I saw you helping a resident. And I see you leading by example about being involved, being engaged, and that's a memory that I won't forget as well. So, you know, Jessica, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your enthusiasm for your new job. And I know that you have a lot to do, and we owe so much to your organization, Main Street Waterloo, for keeping the heart of our city, H-E-A-R-T, not H-A-R-T, of our city, looking good and at the same time active and vital. So we all wish you much success in your new job and look forward for your return to Heart for the City in the future. But before we go, can you tell us how can someone volunteer? How can they contact you to volunteer?
They can call the Main Street Waterloo office at 319-291-2038, and then we can just kind of fill you out, see what you're looking to volunteer to do. We have lots of different opportunities, whether it's at an event or maybe helping us water flowers.
All right, but it's not a food taster or anything, maybe.
I mean, maybe.
All right, thank you so much, Jessica. There are 7,644 main streets with the name Main Street in the U.S. And we, of course, do not have a street with that specific name. But according to the National League of Cities and the U.S. Department of Commerce, there are 9,190 4th Streets nationwide. And 4th Street is literally our main street or the heart of. But if you haven't been downtown for a while, you'll be surprised at its vitality, diversity of activities, and sound, aesthetics, design, and just the overall restoration. So it's the place to be. And we are so proud of its evolution into a spiritual main street of which we can take great pride. But don't go away. We'll be right back. Well, that's our show. We have an outstanding reference for entertainment, shopping, eating, sporting events, and other activities. And that is the Waterloo Convention and Visitors Bureau award-winning website, travelwaterloo.com. This website is for visitors and everyone who lives in the area. So take a look. There is so much going on. And I cannot say this too often. The city of Waterloo, Iowa has created a fully integrated bicycle transportation system. We are a blue zone city and a bicycle-friendly city. Drivers respect bicyclists. Bicyclists obey all the traffic regulations, and I mean all. It is so important to everyone to be courteous and keep all parties safe. And remember to tell others that Heart for the City episodes are available for viewing on the City of Waterloo homepage, and that's cityofwaterlooiowa.com. Also, be sure to like Heart for the City on Facebook. Please join us next time, and thanks for watching Heart for the City. Until then, I think you will agree it's a great day to be in Waterloo.